Dashboard. Now we're going to see how they're created and used by the end users. So the interesting thing about these type of reports is that any user with permission can create them. If users don't have permissions to create them, a delegated administrator could create these reports and then enable specific permissions to that specific report that they previously created. Once it's created, the reports have access via URL. This means that all we have to do is copy a link and paste it wherever we want so that the end users can start using them. We can also share them by emails, we can publish them on a portal, embed them in a form, etc. I'm going to demonstrate some of these options. So I'm going with a normal user to reports. And from here, I'm going to chronometrics. If I go to chronometrics, I could select a class of process and monitor all the chronometrics of this class of process. All I have to do is select the filters I want. For example, I want to monitor the tasks, the ones that are running, the ones that are finished. I also want to see the alerts, the alarms, and what was finished on time. I could add some other filters. I want to hit the proceed button. I'm going to see the results. So here I can see most of them have been finished on time. Some of them haven't. Okay, here we can see how much time passed from the alarm. So in order to get this data, there is something I need to configure as a delegated administrator. As we can see here, all I have to do is create this report as a normal user. If I want, I can save it. Let me give it a name. So this is the name I gave it. And now I click on save. And from now on, whenever I want to come back to this report, all I have to do is go to reports, go to my queries. Since I created it for myself, I should find it here. And here we have it. If I want to enter, I can always click here and see the report, or I could click here and start editing my report. If I want to delete it, all I have to do is click here. If I want to create another one, I'd go back to chronometrics and create another report. Okay, but it is important that a delegated administrator sets up the chronometrics in the process. Or if not, I wouldn't be able to see this data. Because, one second, let me enable my pop-ups. There we go. So in order for me to know if things were finished on time or out of time, I have to set it up. I have to indicate when something has been finished on time or not. If I want, I can also click here and it would take me directly to the task that I'm monitoring here. So here I can see the information of the task. Anyways, let me go back to structure and see what the delegated administrator has to do in order for this to work. First, we have to go to processes, open the class of process, and go to these tasks and set up the chronometrics. Here in the duration control, we must set it up to yes. And in here, we must set up the duration control. So the maximum would be the maximum amount of time before my task turns red. And it's going to be 10 minutes. We can see it here. Natural minutes, 10. 3 minutes before these 10 minutes, it's going to be the threshold. That means that on minute 7, it would turn orange. Whatever is finished before 7 minutes would be green. So basically, this is how I set up the chronometrics. This is something we've seen on another course. So we can set up the chronometrics of our task, or we could also set up the chronometrics of the entire class of process. Now, once we finish setting up the chronometrics, the end user, all they have to do is click here on reports, create their new report, and view the data of the chronometrics here. I'm also going to show you the executions, although this is something that you've already been using throughout the courses. Let's say I go to executions. So I go to reports, I go to executions. Here I select a class of process. It shows me all the instances that were launched. And if I click on one of them, I can see exactly where it stopped. So who has the flow? I can go to the panel and see all the values. Okay, this is an option you guys have already seen, so I'm not going to enter in a lot of detail. But anyways, here I can see the information of the comment logs, the documents that were attached, and the chronometrics if they were configured. So this dashboard, I could also save it and access the dashboard later on. So all I have to do is click here on the button save. Basically, all I'd be saving was my filters. So usually we don't really save these dashboards because it's very easy to create them on the fly. So usually I'll just come here and I'll create a new one each time. But anyways, if I want to save it with certain filters, I could always add a couple filters here, click on save, give it a name. Now, if I want to access again, I can go to reports, my queries. Here I can see the one I just saved. Besides, when I enter, I see this filter is already here. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. If I want to delete them, all I have to do is click here, delete one of them, and delete the other one. There we go. Now, we're going to see two other reports. One of them is called control points. This one does require an administrator to create it, but it's really easy. So in order to do that, I'm just going to go to structure. And if a delegated administrator wants to create reports, create dashboards, he can do it from here. So when I click on public queries, I can click on create a public query. And now all I have to do is give my public query a name. I could add a secure room. This would allow me to restrict the permissions to this query. And then here I'd select the type of query. When I click here, I'm going to select points of control. We've already seen all these other ones like chronometrics, executions. Now we're going to continue with points of control. So I click here. And all I have to do is select a class of process. For example, product request. And how do I want to display this data? For example, in a pie chart. Now I'm going to save and exit. Here we have my report, the one I just created. Since I didn't add a secure room, there's no restrictions on permissions, so any user can actually see it. So I'm going to go to reports as a normal user. And in my queries, we can see they can see the queries that they have created, but they can also see the queries that have been created from structure by a delegated administrator. So I'll click here, and here I can see the result of my query of points of control. Now, how is the data displayed this way in all these different colors with these different numbers? And if I click here, for example, it shows me the list of the 7 processes that are approval pending. Now, how is this done? Well, when we go to the configuration of a class of process, we can add control points. So here I'm going to show you the control points that I have in this class of process. I have approval pending, reprocess order, under revision, approved, and rejected. Each time the flow goes through one of these control points, the reports of the type control points are going to register that status, and they're going to display it in whatever chart we selected. For example, we can select stacked vertical, horizontal column, whatever option works better for us. So here I can see all the processes that are approval pending. I actually have 7 right now. But let's say I want to launch a new process. So I'm going to grab the link of this start message event. And I'm going to launch the process. I'm going to ask for a monitor. Okay, there we go. We've already launched the process. So I go back to my public query where I had 7 processes pending for approval. And now if I update it, I actually have 8. So we can see that the control point is picking up this information. I'm going to enter, and we're going to grab this last one we just launched, number 14. And we can see right now it's pending to be approved. The flow went from the star message event, it went down here to this approval task. And now this performer here can indicate whether they're going to approve or reject the request. I'm actually going to enter and reject it. So I'm going to say I don't approve it. Now what's going to happen? The flow went through this other control point. So now it's under revision. If I go back to monitor, here I can see under revision, apparently I only had 1 and I had 8 approval pending. But now if I update the report, now I have 7 approval pending and I have 2 under revision. So we can see that this is automatically updated with the status of the process based on the control points. Now we're going to see one more report that any user with permissions could create. All we have to do is enter reports again. Now we're going to this option, it's called statistics. Now this option allows me to create or design a grid with any data that I have in the panel of a process. Although for me, it's especially interesting when we're talking about groups of fields because it allows me to create a grid with data of a group of fields that's being used in several panels of different classes of processes. This means I can monitor not only the lines of a group of fields that are in one class of process, but in several classes of process. All I have to do is click here on group of fields. Now I'd select the group of fields I want to monitor. I'm going to try this one called projects. Now, here I could select a container if I had any, of course, and the classes of process that are using this group of fields called projects. So let me select all of them. And now if I click proceed, I'd see all the lines that are inside of this group of fields in the panel of the in the different panels of the three classes of processes. Here I don't have any lines, so it's not displaying any information. But anyways, it's very interesting to be able to see all the data that's being generated in the group of fields in different classes of processes. Exercise 402, Part 1.